Martial arts school owners, if you are making any of the 5 marketing mistakes that I'm about to cover, then you're losing money, time, and effort. Knowing that you're making a few dumb marketing mistakes is one thing, but being given the exact step-by-step solutions to those problems to transform the way you grow your martial arts school is a whole new set of value and importance. With marketing costs at an all-time high and a significant increase of martial arts schools running ads online, the time to fix these issues has never been more crucial. So grab a pen and paper and get ready to take notes. Alright. That's it. Let's get into it. Okay. Let me chill for a second. Sorry guys. Normally when I put all this together or I'm preparing videos or whatnot, for me to get in the zone, I listen to music. It depends really what I'm working on. But right now I was jamming to some R&B. I love R&B. One of my favorite genres. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about the 5 marketing mistakes that I want you to prevent from doing, because I did them and it sucked because it cost me a lot of money. Obviously time you can't get back. Effort, sure, but I mean at the end of the day, it's not a waste, right? Because I learned a lot out of it, and now I'm going to help you avoid losing that time, money, and effort. So, all right, let's get into it. So, the first mistake that you're probably going to do, and I get it is completely normal to do this, because when you're thinking about marketing, the most intuitive thing to do is to focus on running ads and promotions, right? So I did that for myself. I did it on Instagram, on Facebook, on Google Ads. Like I was putting ads everywhere. And that is even with a background helping corporate marketing campaigns and knowing everything that I know. But I think for me, I was just trying to reach customers quick, right? And I was trying to get exposure quick. To some extent, running ads and marketing and doing promotions does work, but in the long run, not really. And even in the short run, it's really hard to take off. The other thing is that when you are running ads and promotions, you're focusing too much on the selling, right? So you're selling too hard. You are trying to get people in. And in some ways, listen, I don't know about you, but you know, maybe you're cool like that, but not me. I look desperate in my ads, just trying to get people in. And that's not uncommon for people to do when they're running promotions and advertisements, is to in some way look kind of desperate. And listen, even if you hire a martial arts marketing agency, right, which I'm not saying that their copywriting is not good, it could be, but the thing about it is that, okay, you might not sound desperate like I did, but you regardless, you come out pushy, right? And the other thing is that I hate to say this, and I saw it firsthand behind the scenes, but marketing agencies a lot of times run with similar copywriting or similar scripts, and it's just like copy and paste, you know, other martial arts schools, they're just making little switches to match whatever school they're serving, right? And with that, you start sounding like everyone else, right? So you don't stand out because you're saying, let's say for instance, one of your future students is on their phone and they're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram on their phone. The same way that they can see an ad about a martial arts school, let's say Taekwondo, asking them to join, and back to school sign-ups, whatever the case is, they can keep on scrolling later on, and they can then bump into a jiu-jitsu advertisement saying very similar things. So it's very difficult for you to stand out. Let's say for instance you were at jiu-jitsu school or whatever martial arts school you are. It's hard to stand out because a lot of advertisements on Facebook look the same. If you don't believe me, I recommend you that you go on sorry about that, that's my dog. But if you don't believe me, go to Facebook ad library, type in marketing ads that are currently active, and you will see, because all the ads that are being run right now on Facebook and Instagram, I don't know if you knew, but they're the same. They are all there documented, and you will see for yourself. You can even go as far as looking for your own ad if you're running one, and see how similar your ad is to the ones that other people are writing. How are you going to stand out like that? It's very difficult. So for that reason, a lot of times people see your ad and they're just going to tune out, like, oh, somebody else saying the same thing. You know, I don't know about you. Like for me, I'm born and raised in New York City. You know, and whew, I'm dating myself, but back in the day, there used to be a lot of guys selling CDs, right? So there would be like upcoming recording artists, like R&B singers, like hip hop folks, and they would be like, hey, you know, like, do you want to buy my CD? And whatever, and they were telling me, you know, why I should buy the CD and all these new jams and all this stuff, and it sounded very similar as the other guy, you know, that I would hear trying to sell me some CDs coming out of the train station, you know, or even in the cars in the train. So it's difficult because nobody likes to get sold to, right? Like, we don't like that sleazy, pushy, you know, feeling. Like, even when I talk about it, I cringe, because that's normally my internal reaction. A lot of times I just walk away, like, straight up. Like, I don't like that. No one likes that, right? And your immediate thing is tune out. Like, you just start thinking about something else and you just shut them down. Like, hey, I don't want that, right? Because nobody likes to get sold. So I would say don't do that. And that is why I've been dissuading people for a long time. And if you want to run your school, if you want to grow it, and if you want to do marketing, don't do ads. And I know that sounds crazy, because a lot of people, when I talk to them about marketing, the first thing that pops in their head is, oh, ads and promotions. Even when I worked with martial arts school owners before, that's the first thing that they thought about. Oh, marketing? Yeah, that's running ads and promotions. Oh yeah, like, I had this experience with this person, and, you know, for the first month, some people came and then they didn't join, or that doesn't work out. So for them, marketing was promotions and ads. I'm going to create a video later on about that, why we have that notion of marketing, because it's a very loaded theme. And I can see why a lot of people have that thinking, but that is not marketing. It is far from it. So what do you do to fix this problem, right? Of trying to sell too hard, looking desperate, and getting tuned out by, you know, the people that you want to bring in. Well, what you want to do is you want to build relationships with your target audience. And I want you to pay attention to this thing that I highlighted here, target audience, because we're going to come back to that, right? It's really important. So how do you build connections with your target audience? Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to highlight this again. And I think this is where, like, my background comes in pretty handy, because I learned behavioral economics, and I specialize in consumer psychology, where we're basically studying the emotional and mental reasoning behind people buying goods and services. And one thing that it is proven by science is that people buy with their emotions first, right? And then they later on rationalize this with their brains. So let me explain this. Think about the time that you probably bought a car, or think about when you bought a watch, right? So many watches can do the same thing, surprisingly, tell time, right? So many cars can do the same thing, take you from point A to point B. But what makes the difference between you perhaps buying and listen, I got a Toyota, right? And what makes the difference between you buying a Toyota, and, like, I take my own self for example as well, and other times in my life where I bought a BMW, right? Or I bought a Dodge Charger, right? That was the emotional factor that played in. And actually, I would argue that the emotional factor played in with me buying a Toyota, and I'll tell you why. So when I was younger, I cared about how I looked. I cared about external perception, especially when I was in the Marine Corps, right? And being in the Marine Corps, I wanted to drive a fast car, you know. I wanted to look stunning. You know, I wanted to, I don't know. It's just dumb, but that mattered to me, you know, having some kind of status, whatever. And so I bought a BMW, right? And a lot of times, I'm not saying that's not a good reason, but a lot of times people that buy luxury vehicles, sports vehicles, they buy them for those reasons, just for the status, how they're going to be seen by others, right? The same by your watch, right? A watch says a lot about someone, right? But if you think about it, we live in a time where you don't even need a watch, because if you're like me and almost everyone in the world, you have a phone. So like you can just pull out your phone, you know, and it tells you the time, right? But instead, there are people still, right? And this market is really hot, where people buy Rolex, they buy Cartiers, they buy, you know, a lot of other expensive watches. Why? Because a watch says a lot about a person. Not everybody, listen, especially men. Like for men, it says a lot about you, depending on, you know, on the watch that you wear. I'm not saying that what it says is necessarily true, because it's one thing to look like something and actually be that thing. So that is just my personal opinion. But yes, so I digress. Going back to building relationships. So how you build relationships is by knowing that people buy goods and services with their emotions. That's the point I actually was trying to make, right? So bear with me. So because you know that, then you want to be able to deliver value to your people, right? To the people that you want to bring in. In your case, as a martial arts school owner, how do you bring value to them? How do you deliver value to them that they can see themselves as valuable, and then they can start trusting you because they see that what you share with them works? Well, a perfect example can be like a self-defense tutorial, right? So you can create a video. If you don't want to create a video, you can do a blog. Again, I said this before, but in however way you decide to create content, make sure that you create content in a way that feels natural to you, that you enjoy doing it. Right now, you guys saw, like, I was listening to some music, right? Because I was in the groove. I'm trying to combine a lot of things that I love when I'm creating content for you guys. So I love creating videos. I don't have a problem being in front of a camera. I like it. I like creating visuals because I'm a visual learner, and I love music, right? So I combine all those things to make the creation experience as satisfying as possible, because then I stay in the fight. But also, when I'm enjoying myself, I'm creating really great content for you, right? So, you know, anyway, make sure you pick the medium that you love the most, that you enjoy the most, so that you can really create really valuable content for people, right? And people are going to be able to see that. So, you know, it can be, if your thing is videos, you can create tutorials. You can also, if you're not that kind of person, you're a writer, right? Then you can probably create, I don't know, like a document that you can share with people that tells them, hey, how to de-escalate fights, right? So you can teach them the mental aspect, the mental approach, right, of how to de-escalate a fight, because that is, you know, a great self-defense. I think Sun Tzu said it, that the best fight that you can fight is the one that you never fight, right? So that can be a great manual that you can create for someone, and they can look, they can see, they can read that, and you know, especially if it's someone like in school and they're being bullied, and they apply those principles, like how powerful it would be for them to immediately see that what you share with them actually worked. Anyway, so I would say focus on that. You can also do stories, right? So create stories, not create stories, excuse me, share stories about martial arts with your target audience. So, you know, you can probably share experiences about yourself. I would say the more vulnerable you want the more vulnerable you are, the better it would be, I think for yourself, but also for the people that you're trying to connect with. So, you know, I take my story as an example. Like for me, the reason why I started doing martial arts is because I was struggling a lot with anger. I was having a lot of mental problems, dealing with PTSD, and martial arts is therapy for me. Like that is what helps me, you know, keep my sanity and stay, you know, healthy. So for me, that is how I see martial arts, and I can go in depth with part of my story, but anyway, see how that applies to you and do something similar where you can showcase your story about martial arts. And who knows, maybe someone out there, if you used to struggle with anger, or you're still struggling with it, and martial arts is helping you, maybe there is someone out there that is around your same age or even younger, and they're dealing with anger issues, and seeing them, you share, the realness of your struggle and how, like, tangibly martial arts is helping you, that can motivate them, because they can be like, oh, I want that solution as well. Like, I want to experience that. I'm tired of being angry and, all that stuff. So anyway, enough about that. Let's move on for the sake of time. But that's just an example. I'm trying to be as explicit as possible to help you drive it home, like the problem and the solutions. But I don't want to spend too much time on it, because we still have 4 more other problems to cover. Okay, the second problem would be ignore the power of social proof, right? So what does that mean? I'll explain it. That has to do with testimonials, but a lot of times, martial arts school owners might not, and I'm not saying all of them, but probably, there's some out there that they don't want to create testimonials because maybe it's too much work, to put everything together, to schedule a time to talk to someone, finding someone that is willing to talk about their experience, and then trying to figure out like what questions to ask, and the setting up of the camera, all that stuff. It can be overwhelming, and to some extent, I hear you. But you need to understand how powerful it is for you to share a testimonial of someone that is a student, talking about how you impacted them in their lives, right? And not only that, like, not only the impact that you've made in that person's life in the dojo, or your academy, your gym, whatever you call it, I respect that, but also outside of it, right? Like, how did you make an impact on that person's life outside of just the dojo, right? So yeah, you probably don't want to bother students, but you'll be surprised if you ask them, how willing they would be to share their stories. And I know it takes a little bit of courage, because even listen, you could be, best thing since sliced bread, you could be Chuck Norris over here, and you don't have a problem fighting with someone, or sparring with someone, but asking for a favor might be really difficult for you. And I hear you, but it's just a way for you to grow, right? To push yourself into a little bit of an uncomfortable area, and that is how you get to grow. Like, asking for a favor sometimes is not easy, but really, if you made such an positive impact on the student's life, trust me, they're not going to even see it as a favor. They'll be honored to do it. The other thing is that some people might have the idea of, well, my martial arts is effective, and I'm gonna let the martial arts speak for itself. Like, the proof is in the pudding. I think that is tangible. That's great, right? Because there's also a lot of like bogus martial arts out there, in my opinion, that are not effective, and it's just hype. And for example, if you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor, and I'm sorry, I'm a little bit biased about it, because I do it, and I know a lot of people in that world, but you might say, I know Jiu-Jitsu is effective, right? Like, I don't have to really push it out there. You might think that you're pushing it, but you're not, right? You never know. You create a video, you put it out there, someone might have never heard of Jiu-Jitsu, and just hearing it in a way that is personal and that connects with them might change everything for that person. So I'm just saying. And how do you fix this problem of social proof? I mean, I just said it, right? But I'll be more explicit about it. But showcase testimonials and success stories. So you could do that with yourself. You could do that with your students, right? And the one thing I kind of alluded to it in the beginning, but I want to point it out, is that sure, you want to talk about the benefits of martial arts inside your academy, but I think it's more impactful when you showcase the benefits of martial arts outside of it. Benefits that people wouldn't think are there, that only people that practice martial arts know them firsthand, right? So emotional benefits, the mental benefits, the physical, the psychological benefits, right? You know, there are times where sometimes my temper gets the best of me, but I think like one personal anecdote, right? And this is, if you have a similar story, you can share this. This is why I'm sharing it. But you know, sometimes it was, there's times that it's kind of difficult for me to get a grip of my temper, right? And sometimes my emotions get the best of me, but I think that it has improved a lot after, you know, doing jiu-jitsu. And you know, the one thing I learned is that don't lose your shit, no matter what, right? Sometimes it's easier than other times to do that, and I'm a victim of that. But you know, like, there's times when you're just getting hammered and you're the nail, and people are just on you and they're putting pressure on you. There's times like I'm under people, I can't breathe, and it's just like, don't lose your focus, stay the course, get out, find a way to get out. There's always a way out, right? And just don't lose your composure, don't freak out, don't panic, keep going, right? And I think like being in those physical, psychological situations while I'm grappling in jiu-jitsu translates sometimes when I'm stressed out and people are pissing me the heck off, and I'm like, okay, don't lose your crap, stay the course, like have the discipline to not lose your shit, right? And you can probably polish that a little bit, but that's what I'm saying, like that can be a testimonial, and that can speak volumes to the benefit of martial arts. Yeah, and that's why I'm so passionate about this. But okay, so moving on now to problem number 3, which is the mistake that people do when they're doing marketing, is they do not define ideal students. So I talked about this before, target audience, now we're talking about it again, right? So not defining your target ideal students. So what do I mean by that? And I drew, I don't know if you guys can see it here, but I drew a little target here for me. And I think it's so important as a martial arts school owner to have, listen, I think it goes far beyond just being a martial arts school owner. Just as an individual, that wants to achieve any goal, be very, very explicit about the goal that you want to achieve, what you're aiming for, right? Because when you don't do that, you start sounding super generic, right? Like it sounds like you're talking to everyone. And if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one, because you're making no personal connection with someone. So let me give you an example of, like, at least like my personal life to drive this home, right? So when I was in the Marine Corps, we had to do rifle qualifications every year. So if you didn't know that, now you know. Because every Marine is a rifleman. So, you know, you do that since boot camp and to the time you get out, at least once a year, unless you're deployed or whatever, which that happened with me. But anyways, so the first thing you have to do once you get your rifle, of course, you know, you make sure you snap in, you got all your weapon, ammo, all the stuff. But you have to make sure that you positively identify the target that you're going to hit. You have to know where it is, right? And even when you know where it is, then you have to make adjustments to your scope. Before that, like iron sights. So if you know, you know. But you have to adjust the iron sights to then make sure you zero in on the target. And then you gotta go and apply all the marksmanship principles, right? Which is your breathing, your trigger control, don't jerk the freaking weapon, don't anticipate the kickback. All these basic marksmanship fundamentals, you have to apply them. After you did all of that, you shoot the round, right? And even if you applied all the principles to the T of marksmanship, right? Chances are the first shots, you're not going to make them on target. They're not going to go, in the Marine Corps they were black, right? They're not going to make it on black. The black will be like the center of the target, right? That's bullseye. And when you're putting those first shots down range, You're not worried about trying to make it into bullseye. If you do, hey, shit, that's fine. But you're just trying to identify a group, because a group is going to tell you on the target where you're at and what adjustment you need to make. So think about that. All this work that went into identifying the target, like coming up with the right tools, applying the right principles, and even with all of that, we still didn't get it right on the target. That was just to put that rounds down range and then make an adjustment. I'm saying all of that because as you're trying to grow your martial arts school, right, you have to have the right the right marketing strategy, right? The right marketing tactical plan. You have to apply it the right way, applying consumer psychology, right? So you have to apply all these principles. Hopefully you're genuine, you know, and you be vulnerable. You showcase the values of martial arts, all that. You put all that work and you still don't get the people that are coming in, right, that you want. But that might not seem as immediate success, but trust me, it is, because even the failure while you're executing those marketing campaigns is success. Why? Because it's going to tell you what you need to what you need to improve. The mistakes or the shortcomings that you have in marketing helps you identify what you need to improve, and then is when you start tweaking, right? And slowly you make those tweaks until you zero in and you're bullseye. That is why it is so important that you have a target audience identified, because without an identified target, how are you going to hit anything? It's impossible, right? So create a customer persona. In your case, a student persona. What the heck does that mean? Listen, if you haven't seen it yet, I created a video on YouTube already on this. It's in my Grow Your Academy in 10 days. I recommend you to check it out. I tell you what is a student persona, how to create it, and why is it important, which I kind of talked about right now. But at a high level right now, what is a customer or student persona in your case? That what you do is you conduct research, right? And you identify what person that you're targeting, right? And the persona is a representation, is a fictional character that you create that represents your target audience. And you're using this persona as a reference. So every time that you are, for example, putting out content, let's say on YouTube, you go and refer to that persona and you look at it and say, okay, if I was talking to, I don't know, let's just say the name is John. That's your fictional persona, right? If I was talking to John, what would John want to hear? Okay, well, let me look at their interests, right? Let me look at their age. Let me look at their goals, their challenges, their motivations. All these things, you look at that, you revise that, and then based on that, that helps you give you guidance in terms of what you should talk about, right? Like I do that myself before I come up with all this content. I have a persona of you, right? A fictional persona that I created that represents you. So what are your interests, your motivations, your habits, your goals? And there is a way to do that, right? To gather that information by conducting research. Again, I don't want to get into that right now because right now what I'm trying to do is cover the mistakes and how to solve them. But if you want to know how to do that, make sure you check out that video. And also, I'm going to have a link that I'm going to provide to the videos where you can reach out to me and I will tell you more in depth how to create them and what is the research method that you need to apply and how to do that, right? But I just want to put that on your radar. Let's move on. So mistake number 4, which is inconsistent content creation. All right, so you can say, okay, I decided to, in your case, like let's just say like you're like me, you like to be in front of a camera. Okay, I think that's the most natural because I already teach. So let me just do a tutorial and I just put a camera and I do the tutorial like I would be doing it in class, right? So that could be a possible scenario for you. I'm just making assumptions here, right? So let's say that is the case. And you say, okay, well, I got to come up with a theme. I got to come up with, the structure of the video, and then I got to film it, edit it, post it, all that good jazz, right? So you do that, but you realize that is a lot of work. and you're like, shit, I'm busy. Like, I gotta run to school, I gotta make sure the bills are paid, I gotta teach, I have a wife, I have a husband, I have kids, like I gotta take them to school, pick them up, help them with homework, all this other stuff that we have to do, you know, that requires you being a human living life, right? I get it, I'm a father too of 2 kids. So let's just say that because you live such a busy life, right? Then you feel like, oh, this is taking too much time. And the first month you're able to post a video a week. But then after that you get so busy and shit, you don't have the time to do it, right? Now it's like, and what happens is that if you, and this is something I recommend, right? If you're creating a YouTube channel, and I did this for myself, I held myself accountable that I will have new videos for you every week, right? Unless an emergency happens, I am creating and sharing with you new videos, new educational videos every week. So I recommend you that you do at least once a week. If you can, 2 times a week. Shit, if you have more time, 3 times a week. Why? Because that creates consistency, right? And we as martial artists know this, that consistency has to do a lot with improvement. But here, what you want to do is that you're establishing a relationship with someone, right? So you're establishing a emotional, a psychological, a human relationship with your target audience. How? By providing valuable content that they can experience the value, and that allows them to earn your trust. You earn their trust, excuse me. So one of those ways is, how do you earn their trust, is by saying, okay, if I'm going to release a video every week, stay consistent. Every week, release a video. When you stop doing that, that loses trust, because they're like, well, you know, this person said they're going to share a video every week and they're not, right? So that happens, you lose your momentum, people stop watching your videos, or you just drop off their radar. They're not even expecting you, right? And so what happens is they move on to something else, right? And you think about it like this, like if you have a significant other, you know, what it took, once again, for me, an example, right? Like now I'm engaged with the person I'm with, my fiance. In order for us to get to that level, for her to say yes to me when I asked her out, I had to show up and she had to show up consistently, right? And consistently going on dates, you know, once, twice a week, or, you know, at least once a week, seeing each other. And that consistency and constantly delivering value to us, not in the form of a freaking tutorial, but, you know, showing to each other that we're reliable, we're trustworthy, and that, you know, we can be open with each other, right? That allowed the relationship to grow, and then for us to get to where we are now. Well, you're doing the same thing. You're building a relationship with your target audience. And so how do you do that? By consistently delivering value. All right, I ran my mouth too much on that, but let's talk about how do you solve this problem of inconsistent content creation, right? Because I'm telling you, I know it can be demanding. So 2 things that you can do, and I have applied these 2 things. I can testify to this as well. You create a content calendar, right? So it is much more efficient to come up with ideas or themes that you want to talk about for a month in advance, right? And then later on, you have defined that, okay, I'm going to talk about, you know, I'm going to talk about takedowns on Monday. I'm going to talk about, let's say, sweeps on the next week. I'm going to talk about, trying to think about it here. I don't know, some other move, right? Some other martial art move, you know, the 3rd week and then the 4th week. And you already have those laid out, right? And then what you do is you batch your work. So instead of every week spending time to do research on the topic that you want to talk about, planning the content, the structure of the video, right? In this case, if you were to do video, record it and then edit it and then post it. If you were to do that every single week, that is a lot. Like, that requires a lot of time. And as a martial arts school owner, and, you know, probably have family, I don't know if you have time to do all this jazz, right? Like, that shit is a lot. So it is so much more efficient if you say, okay, let me take a pause, let me sit down and say, for the upcoming month, what do I want to talk about, right? And then you, going back to the previous point, you consult the student persona that you created and say, okay, what does, I don't even know, remember, what is his name, John? What is it that John wants to, what are the things that he probably wants to hear about, right? Or let's talk about, just for the sake of diversity as well. What does Martha want to hear about? Like, what is she interested in? And then you see, okay, what are their interests, all these things, and say, okay, now that I see what they're interested in, what are their challenges, like let's just say, for instance, you're trying to recruit kids into your martial arts school, which normally is not too difficult to do, right? But in your case, let's say that is the case. Okay, well, students, they go through bullying. They a lot of times deal with confrontations that end up quickly escalating. They don't know how to handle that. They probably have issues with like a little brother, a little sister, you know, anger issues, etc. So you think about it and say, okay, how do I create content that can be valuable to them? Their parents can see it, and they can see that I am a clear choice to solve their problems, right? And then you create content for kids to help them deal with emotional, psychological, mental issues, and how martial arts helps them overcome these specific problems for the weeks 1 through 4 for the next upcoming month. Okay, you did that, right? That was the planning. Now what you can do is say, what day is the slowest, you know, in terms of activities? And let's just say, for instance, like, I don't know, like a Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday, I don't really have a lot going on. You know, there's other people teaching for me, so I have a pretty open time from this time to this time. So if you have available time like that, you batch your work. So you do all the recordings for that month from week 1, 2, 3, and 4 that day, right? So you knock them all out in that day. And then what you can do is, if you have more time, you can edit them themselves another day that you have more time, right? If not, you can outsource them to, you know, one of your students or you know, your spouse or I don't know, like an instructor that wants to help you with this, right? And then they can be posted, right? So you don't have to be glued to a camera, you know, every single week. Like, this can be batch. I do this and it helps out for the sake of visual diversity. Sometimes I change outfits just to show it, you know, so you're not seeing the same me and talking about different topics in the same clothes. I don't know, that's just me. But yes, so I hope that works. That is a good way to solve this problem and for you to constantly create content in a consistent basis. Moving on to our last one, right? So the 5th problem that you need to address, so I want to make you aware of it, and that is not following up with leads, excuse me, and people that are interested, right? So for example, if you're creating content, right, and this is just for any content creator. If you're creating content, you post something, people comment on it, and you don't reply back, that hurts. That's gonna hurt your engagement, right? But also that could have been an opportunity to turn that person into a lead, right? I'm using like this marketing jargon. But then also, like, if you have a free class, right? Free trial class, one thing I recommend, if it's in person, if it's online, obviously, like, get their contact information. I would say at a bare minimum, get their email. If you can't get their phone number and their name, because that helps out when you're following up with them, right? And if you're doing that in person, have a sign-in sheet, right? Or have someone ask them exclusively when they come in, you know, for their contact information. Maybe they don't stay until the end of the trial class. They leave halfway, something happens. That's okay. You know, if you wait to the end, you missed that opportunity, right? And all that time and effort. But if you did in the very beginning, they leave, you still got the follow-up information. So it's really important. You have a workshop, self-defense workshop, for example, right? That you come up with. Also, if you want more information about what to do in order to grow your martial arts school in this manner, make sure you check out the video that I posted last week, where I share with you a 3-month marketing plan in detail, and I tell you exactly what to do on a week-by-week basis. I tell you what to do and how to do it. So check that out. And then the other thing is signups. So signups come in different forms. It can be a newsletter signup that people do. It can be a free product that you give away. Like, for example, you can create a manual of how to de-escalate, verbally a fight. And you can share that if you like to blog, right? You could do it in the form of a video as well. You could do a tutorial, whatever it is, right? You share that. Or any other kind of sign up that you might think of, right? That you might be creative with. You have their email because that's how they signed up. Make sure you use that information to follow up with them, right? We call it in marketing, nurture the leads, right? You got to warm up the leads. And why is that important? Because, chances are people are not going to tell you yes the first time that you ask them, to join your school. Sometimes that might be the case, sometimes that's not true. A lot of times people don't say yes the first time. And that is a perfect segue into how to solve this problem of not following up with people that are interested. And I'm going to get personal. I'm going to share with you a personal story about following up, which I think fits perfectly with implementing a follow-up system. So I'll share my story and then I'll tell you how you can follow up with your martial arts school. So, people don't always tell you yes the first time you ask them for something, right? So I'll share with you a story of how I met my fiance. She was at a bookstore and Barnes and Noble, so shout out to Barnes and Nobles. And I saw her there, beautiful. The thing that turned me on the most was that she was sitting at this table, like surrounded with books. Like there was books everywhere. And I'm a nerd, so I'm obviously attracted to other nerds. Black, beautiful woman, and super smart. I was like, oh my goodness. So I go in there, I'm talking to her, and I'm like, hey, what are you reading? Blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, I'm getting ready for a test, psychology. I'm getting my master's in psychology at Pepperdine. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then for me, that's amazing because my background is in consumer psychology. So it's like, oh, I was like, tell me more, and I was like, damn, not only is she smart, but she's into what I'm into. I was like, oh my God. So I started talking to her, blah, blah, blah. And of course, I can't leave without, closing the deal. So I'm about to leave and I say, hey, can I get your number? I would like to stay in touch with you and get to know you more. Something along those lines. This woman decides not to give me her phone number and says, I'll give you my email. Man, in my head I was like, what the fuck? Like, no one has ever done that to me in my life. I'm not the most good looking, but like that has never happened. It's either, okay, here's my number, or no, I'm not interested. And it's like, I'll give you my email. I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Anyway, I walk out of the library. I don't know why this happened. I think because she gave me an email, I went back to the times where someone gave me an email and it was in a professional setting. I think that's what I can reason it with. And a lot of times it happened in consulting or in finance. Like when I was at Morgan Stanley, we had a meeting. We would take notes on the meeting because when we would follow up with people, we would make sure we hit every bullet point that we thought was important to show the other person that we listened and to make sure that we're following up on what needs to be followed up and we're not wasting time. The same logic for consulting. And I decided to do the same with her, with my partner. I still have it here till this day. I took out the app where it's the notes and I wrote down all the things that she talked about that I thought was important. I wrote down bullet point by bullet point. And that same night, I followed up with the email, touching base on everything. I get emotional. And I'll tell you why. Everything that she talked about with me to show her that I cared, to show her that I was listening. And man, I was following up like this for 5 months. 5 months because before this woman gave me her number and said, sure, let's go on a date. And 3 years later, we're engaged now. So I said all of this. I share with you how I got with my partner, right? How I met her, how we started our relationship, how we got to be engaged now. Because that showcases, in my opinion, the importance of following up and how you follow up. So how do you solve this problem of not following up with your leads, right? What you want to do is have an automatic system, right? So you can use a CRM system. I forget, I'm really bad with acronyms, but I think it's customer relationship management system. So you can use a CRM system. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody on the comments. And I use it I don't know what it stands for, or I don't remember all the time, but I know how to use it. So that, whatever. But you can set up automatic follow-ups, right? Like when somebody signs up to my newsletter, when someone signed up to things that I give away for free, they automatically start sending out emails, right? So they're very specific emails, and I can even determine the follow-up emails, what they're going to talk about in what sequence, right? Anyway, I don't want to get into the minutia, but just know that there are systems out there that can do this for you. You can follow up with people over email. You can follow with people over text, and even over a phone call, leaving a voice memo. You can record the memo. You can record the voice memo, and then that gets sent out automatically to that person. It gets a little bit finicky because you're sending out to a different group of people. I wouldn't say like leaving a name, because if you leave a name in a greeting and then say the memo or the message, you're gonna have to do that for every single person. So I would say don't do that. Just say what you gotta say in the follow-up without a name, so making it too customizable. On the other end, making it completely customizable and personal, right? Adding that personal touch. Another thing that you can do is that when someone comes into a free trial class in person, right? I would say do it here, because that is where people show the most investment in you, right? Like however you grab them, they did that, right? And they came and they spent the time to try out your class. Because they invested so much, I recommend that you invest just as much effort in them. So this is what I would do if I was you. If you're like the one person, like I don't know how it is in your academy, how you do it, but in different academies, and the one that I was part of before I transitioned to Henzo's, is that whoever we're trying out, they will have them in this cone section, so everybody knew, hey, these folks are trying out. Obviously they didn't have uniform, so they don't have gis. If we were doing a gi class, they were just in like a workout attire, so we also visually knew that. But if you're that and normally there's an instructor with them teaching them the moves and taking it at a slower pace. If you're that person, right, that's doing that, try to take mental notes on particular things that the person share with you as they're doing, the trial class. Whether it can be a personal thing that they share with you, it's particular difficulty with a move, or particular goal that they're trying to achieve, while doing martial arts. Take mental notes of that stuff. And I would say as soon as you can, write them down so you don't forget, and associate that with the person that's told you that. So just like I followed up with my fiance, right, that you can follow up with them, right, and say, okay, this person, we talked about this, these are the key takeaways or the key points that I want to make sure I touch upon, that I feel that can allow me to make a personal connection with that person, show them that I cared about them and that I really want them to join my school, right? So that is a great recommendation. It's a little bit creative. Yes, a little more work, but hey, I'm saying put in as much effort, into them, because they put a lot of effort into you, right? They saw your ad, or they, whatever lead magnet you share with them, they consumed that, and they've been following you on YouTube. I don't know how you grabbed them and brought them in. There's a number of ways that You probably did. But they took the time to travel to your school, and they spend the time in the class. That's a lot of effort. So that's why I say match that effort, right? Anyway, that is it. Those are the 5 marketing mistakes that I have personally done, and that I have personally figured out how to solve them in the professional setting, and even in a personal setting. So I hope those were useful. What's going on, guys? Thank you for staying till the end. I really appreciate it. It was an honor to do this video for you guys and share with you the mistakes and how to solve them. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed my personal story of how I got together with my fiance. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you do that. And hey, if you found anything that I shared with you here valuable to you, I have 3 favors to ask from you. The first one is give it a like, comment what you found valuable in this video and why. And if you want to share with me, like, how do you plan to implement anything that I share with you for your school, I would love to hear that. And please make sure to share this with other people and subscribe. Because why I ask you to do these things? Well, I think one is feedback for me, but also this helps the algorithm so that it knows that folks like you are finding this valuable, and that it can recommend it to other martial arts school owners so they can also benefit, right, from what I'm sharing with you. All right, guys, that's all. I hope that you enjoyed it. It was an honor, and I can't wait till you watch my next video. That will be the one that closes this series of growing your martial arts school in 10 days. Take care, guys.